reflect that 4 members are present, with Mrs. Farley dialed in remotely. One is. And I would like to ask the Summers County Comprehensive High School golf team, who is joining us here today, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, item 3, we have approval of agenda or adjustments.
I'd like to make a motion that we, in the bills, we pay R.T. Rogers and Safe and Sound separately.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we pull the bills for R.T. Rogers and Safe and Sound and pay those separately. Any further adjustments or amendments?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda with the aforementioned changes.
I'll second. We have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by myself, that we approve the agenda with the aforementioned adjustments. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by 5-0 vote that the agenda has been approved with adjustments. Okay. Item 4, presentations. We have Mr. Hunter here from Bowles and Rice.
Good
Thank you for
evening.
joining us, sir.
Glad to be here. I was just going back and looking in my yearbooks, and I went to Sophia High School in 1972. I graduated. I came down here with the basketball team. I was a manager. I wasn't fast enough, couldn't jump high enough to be on the team, but I love all sports, and so Coach let me tag along and run the clock and the scorebook. So we were here in Hinton a number of times on the basketball team.
With Coach Bob?
Coach Bob Douglas. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But anyway, it brought back a lot of good memories to come down here and talk to you a little bit tonight about excess levies. We do a lot of this type of work all over the state and enjoy it very much, because if we work with you to help you all achieve your goals through what an excess levy can bring to you to help you in that regard, then I feel like it's very satisfying to us as lawyers, as a law firm, to help you better fulfill your constitutional and legal duty to give a thorough and efficient education to the kids in your school district. And so excess levies came into the law in West Virginia back in the 30s, actually. There were a lot of adjustments to our tax system as a result of the pressures from the Great Depression. One of the things they did was they set out some rules of the road, put them in West Virginia code, for when school boards, county boards of education, could supplement their regular budget and what funding they got from the state through what's sometimes called the current levy or the regular levy, by doing an excess levy. Sometimes they're called additional levies. They're both accurate terms, but we'll use the term tonight, excess levy. It just means that under code, you are allowed to say to your voters that we have determined that the needs of our school district are such that important purposes cannot be fully funded with what money we have. And these additional purposes we're going to lay out for you in an order, and then we're going to lay it out in a ballot as well. You give the nature of each purpose and the dollar amount you expect to be raised or would like to be raised for that purpose through the excess levy process. It takes about 100 days from really the time you do your order to the time of the election to do it right. You're well ahead of that curve here tonight as we sit on the 24th of October. But usually what happens is that the school board will work with its superintendent, its finance office, and its chief finance officer, chief school business official, or treasurer, to work on those purposes, to look at the assessed valuations which are provided each year by the county elected assessor primarily, but also the sheriff, and the county commission gets a copy of it, and the state auditor gets a copy of it. So, looking at today's assessed valuations is part of what you do. And then the code allows you to do an excess levy up to a maximum rate for each class of property that's set forth in code. And I believe you may have some handouts there from the superintendent, but
That's
basically.
for the levy information.
Okay. Yeah, so, essentially, if you go all the way up to the maximum excess levy allowed by West Virginia code, sometimes we call that maximum excess levy, or 100% excess levy. And of the 40-some school boards around the state that have excess levies, you see a variety of them. Some places are maxed out at 100%. Cabell County Board of Ed is an example of that. Some are less than 100%, and there are multiple examples of that. It just depends on the purposes you need the additional funds for, and what the dollars are that will be required to achieve those purposes that you have in mind, that you don't have enough money for out of your regular budget and the state school aid formula that you have today, the dollars that you have in total today from the regular or current levy, it's sometimes called, which is really outside your control. It's kind of set by state code through the State Department of Education and the state school aid formula. And in the state school aid formula, there is some account taken for enrollment, as you know, and so if you have some decline in enrollment, you may be experiencing a decline in state school aid formula funding. And so excess levy is one way, one tool in your finance tool chest that the legislature has given you to use. Now, recent legislative changes have changed the rules for pursuing an excess levy. You have to have an election, and the voters have to approve your proposed excess levy and your proposed purposes while you're raising the dollars in an election. Now, it used to be, no more, you could call a special election at a date and time of your choosing. That's gone. Now it's got to be in a primary election or a general election, so if you think that through, it's kind of the even number of years. And the next one coming up would be May or November of 2024, the primary election cycle and the general election cycle. And so, I don't know that the legislature realized that creates some unintended consequences, but it did, and it puts some pressure on school boards who already have an existing excess levy to figure out when do we go for renewal. We can only go in these even number of years. So, but you're looking at one for the first instance, and so the next opportunity for you would be May of 2024, or you could go in November of 2024. Otherwise, unless the legislature changes the law, you'll have to wait basically 2 more years until you get into 2026. So as you're looking at your financial needs and where you could really do some good for your kids with extra funding, or retain or recruit quality professionals, whatever your needs may be that you're needing these extra dollars for. It may be some facilities and maintenance. It's each county's needs are unique, and so it would be custom tailored to what you all need as a school district. There's no one size fits all here. The West Virginia code does not tell you how to spend the money other than some very, very broad guardrails, which really wouldn't be germane for tonight's purposes. But essentially, the board, working with your superintendent and your finance office and chief school business official, would work up and propose. You know, we're happy to help you. We've done a lot of these over the years. We've seen some of the interpretive issues that you run into, so we have some recommendations on some clauses that we think are very important. For example, you have to make these calculations. The excess levy can be for up to 5 years, and that's what most people do, is just run a 5-year levy. And it usually starts on the beginning of a fiscal year, July 1. And so you'd be 5 fiscal years ending June 30. So if you really went to the voters in May of for an excess levy to start, say, July 1 of '24, it would be, the first fiscal year would be for the fiscal year ending June 30, '25. I hope that made sense, but that's kind of what you could be aiming for, and then it would be the fiscal years 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. I think, I used to be good at math, but I think that's 5 years. And so, you have to kind of make educated judgments about how much dollars you need to raise, the purposes, as I said. That's the centerpiece of the excess levy. That's what you're telling voters you need to raise this money for. And you're asking them to approve this excess levy, which would go on their tax bills if it's approved. And you're gonna use that money in these ways. And so that kind of becomes your contract with the voters. And so you wanna be clear as you can about the nature of your purposes, why you're raising the money, what will you hope to accomplish. We do recommend that you include some flexibility in the language. If you have shortfalls, that happens. Boone County Board of Education had a severe shortfall when coal severance taxes and a number of their biggest coal mining companies went bankrupt and didn't pay a bunch of property taxes. It put a big hole in their budget, and so the excess levy, we recommend, includes some language that says this is what we would do if we fall short. If assessed valuations go down or for some other reason, we can't raise the target amount of dollars and we have a shortfall in that sense. Here's what we'll do to make, here's how we'll address that. Here's the purposes, you know, we'll fund, or you could do across the board cuts. There's a number of things, but all purposes aren't created equal, and so I think a lot of school boards prefer to have a clause that says if we fall short, here's where the priorities will be. Or you can say it will be the discretion of the board and its judgment, taking into account all the needs of the district where to make those cuts. So shortfall clause is highly recommended. By the same token, you can have, you know, surpluses. If your assessed valuations go up, you have a new business locate here and property taxes on that go up, or you have a new subdivision and some new homes go in, that, you know, it's possible that property tax values could go up. And in a minute, I'll speak to how we do our property taxes in West Virginia, because the assessed valuations are not at fair market value. In other words, I'll come back and explain that in a minute. You may already know that, so forgive me if I'm covering ground you already understand how the property taxes work in West Virginia and each county. But be that as it may, if the voters approve the excess levy, then that ballot that they approve and they vote on, your order that said these are the purposes we're committing these funds to, that becomes your contract with the voters. And so you want to include the different possibilities of a shortfall clause, of a surplus. It could be either way, and we've seen it both. And so you want to tell the voters, here's what we would do in those two possibilities. The question sometimes comes up, what if we get lucky and get a, you know, just to make up a number, a $50,000 federal grant that, you know, we're eligible for, we're sure we're gonna get it for our kids, and it covers some of the same purposes that our excess levy covers. Usually we write the excess levy ballot so that you have the right to use that in addition to or in lieu of, as long as you spend, the goal is to try to spend what you promise on each purpose, unless you fall short in revenues, which is sort of beyond your control if you think about that. In calculating the amount of the levy rate, there are a couple of steps that you have to take into account, and that is, you know, if you pay your property taxes first half before September 1st, you get a discount. And a lot of people try to do that. If you pay the second half before, February 1st, I think you get a discount. So a lot of the tax revenues come in August and January. But not everybody does that. So when you're calculating how much of a excess levy rate to try to propose in order to raise X amount of dollars, you have to take into account by making some adjustment to the numbers to say, well, we will assume that Y% will not be collected because of discounts or exonerations. Basically, people say that's a mistake, and, you know, I don't know that, and they prove it, the county commission exonerates it. So, that's more an art than a science, and the state auditor, at the end of the line, will usually work with you to review your proposed order before you put it to a final vote. Certainly, we would help work with you to frame it up based on, we have a big notebook with all the excess levies that are out there that have been approved in the state of West Virginia, so, and many of which we've worked on. So we're happy to help you in shaping your order, in shaping your ballot, and in working with your finance staff to estimate what the levy rate would need to be to raise the amount you're targeting. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. If it doesn't pass the first time you try, you're allowed to try again, but you are now constrained to do it only on primary or general election. Didn't used to be that way. And so it sort of channels you into these even years to do something like this. And you can try again. You don't have to run exactly the same. You can change it if it didn't pass the first time. Hopefully, if you do this and you determine that the children, the students that you are striving to help educate, to fulfill your constitutional duty to provide a thorough, efficient education here in this district, these purposes are needed. Hopefully, the voters would recognize that and approve it. Now, there are some rules of the road for when you adopt the order, getting down to the election day. There's a whole sequence of events that most of those, and one reason the legislature didn't like special elections was you had to pay for those. And that's taxpayer dollars that they said, oh, let's just save those and let's just piggyback on a primary election or a general election when, we're gonna have to, there's no extra cost to the school district for piggybacking on the ballot of a primary or a general election. So that's kind of the theory why the legislature did that. I think that's the public policy behind that move. But if you think about it, when you run an election, I don't know if any of you ever been involved in helping with a primary or a general election on election day, but you see all those poll workers. There are rules in the code for how those get picked. The county commission's heavily involved in that, the whole infrastructure or the logistics of pulling off an election. There's a lot that people never see. But you have representatives from both party at each poll place. The county commission has to approve who those people are. And that you have to work closely with the county clerk. And so one important practical tip I would leave with you is that to be as efficient as you possibly can and to make it work as smoothly for everybody as you possibly can, it's highly advisable to speak early to your county officials, your county clerk in particular and your county commission in particular, because they'll need to know you're thinking about coming and putting your proposal on that ballot. Now, when I say it takes roughly 100 days from the day you adopt your order to the election, that's a rule of thumb. You can maybe squeeze a few days and go less than that, but here's what I would caution you. You want to have an early discussion with your county clerk, because some clerks, they would appreciate getting some of this even earlier than the 100 days prior to the election. And so that's just a practical thing. It's not really written in the law. It's just a lot of experience. You want to work and play well with your county officials that run the elections. And of course, your clerk and your county commission are right in the middle of it. So while you control the purposes and whether to go to the voters or not for your excess levy, that's your call. You're the deciders, nobody else. Nonetheless, you need to work well with those county officials, and it'll all go for everybody a whole lot smoother if you do. And they may have some practical tips. Along the way in that 100 days, you have to, of course, if you're using paper ballots in the county, you have to get paper ballots. Absentee ballots have to be approved. For using voting machines, there's some timelines for getting those tested. The clerk and the county commission worry about most of that. You do have to, however, run some legal advertisements that you're technically responsible for under code. Now, the clerk may help you run them because they have to run some too. But specific to your excess levy, you have some obligations, print a proposed ballot, notice of election. And those timelines are spelled out in code, and they're toward the end of that 100 days. You want to be mindful of those. The Secretary of State provides a list of the newspapers that you can publish your legal ads in. And you're probably well aware of that anyhow from posting bids for, bidding construction jobs or whatever it may be in the past. But you want to be sure. Another word of caution and practical tip is it's important to work closely with the county folks, but ultimately you're responsible for the publication of that legal ad. And so we would suggest that you keep a friendly but real close tabs on the publication process for that legal ad, because not with the school board, but on another matter where we had to give a legal notice for a county commission bond issue up in the north. Somebody dropped the ball. So it happens sometimes, but if you're on top of it, you'll see it and quickly can fix it. So we're happy to help you with that too, but that's a practical tip for when you get closer to election day. Sometimes, a few years back, 2018, I gave a presentation to the School Boards Association of West Virginia. And there was a hurricane. It was really supposed to be one weekend, and then it got bumped because of the hurricane. And then we did it on a Saturday, a couple of weeks later. And I really sort of felt sorry for everybody having to sit there on a Saturday listening to excess levy education. But it was very interesting. And they had a focus group panel, which I participated in, which had reported on sort of tips on how to get one of these favorably received by your voters. And so happy to talk about some of that down the line if you choose to go forward. Not every county has one, so on that focus group, we had some of the representatives from counties that had never passed one, and we talked to them about why they thought that might be. And so we'd be happy to talk to you about some of that, answer any questions you may have. This is a broad overview, but essentially the heart of it is you feel and you determine that you need additional dollars to fulfill your education mission here in the county. And you're proposing to raise additional dollars for A, B, and C specific purposes. And then we work with you and your team to reduce that to written form in an order which would include a sample ballot. The voters would be fully informed what the purposes are, and we can work with you to help provide some examples of if a property is worth appraised market value is, pick a number, say $100,000. Then in West Virginia, we assess property at 60% of its fair and actual value. So if it's appraised for $100,000, or just sold for $100,000 in an arm's length transaction, 60% of that would be $60,000, and so you would apply your proposed levy rate to that property. Now, you also have to take some caution to maybe look at examples for homestead exemption property, because that's a little bit different, and it's not just that straight math. And so, but we're happy to work with you and your team, superintendent and the finance team, to answer your questions and give you some scenarios or prepare drafts for you to look at, and then ultimately you all are the deciders, and you would decide the amount, the purposes, the proposed excess levy rate, and what percentage up to 100% of the maximum allowed by law you want to go for. So that's it in a nutshell. Happy to answer questions. But the way to think about it, I think, is you have important needs. This excess levy is a tool to help you finance those needs, but you have to go to the voters and lay it all out in plain English what you're proposing to do, and they have to approve it by 50% plus one. Now, other levying bodies, when they go out for excess levy approvals, they have to get 60%, but state law and Constitution say majority, simple majority for a school board excess levy, which is a good thing, because it used to be 60%. And there are important needs out there in the public schools in the state of West Virginia that weren't getting funded. And so the legislature and the Constitution then rolled that back. Happy to answer any questions.
You mentioned that most school levies run on a 5-year cycle,
Yes, sir.
but the vote can only be taken on a 2-year cycle. So would you recommend sticking with a 5-year cycle or going with a 4-year cycle so that you don't have 1 year of unfunded?
I would stick with the 5, recommend it strongly. And what it means is you have to go to your voters.
A year early.
Yeah, and I don't know if the legislature will ever reconsider this rule. There have been some examples of unintended consequences. Give you one example. When you make your budgets every year, you have to approve your levy rates in West Virginia for your school board on the 3rd Tuesday of April. You'll get your assessed valuations typically from the assessor's office 1st of March, last of February. So between that time and the 3rd Tuesday, you've got to pull your levies together and formally approve them at the board level, and then you make your budget. You have deadlines for approving your school district's budget. And so if you don't get your levy approved until May of 2024, how does it get on the tax tickets for the next fiscal year? It's just a practical problem. I don't think anybody thought about it too much. So there's been some attempts to try to adjust the rules so that you can true up a little bit some of these issues. But basically, it would mean that you would be wise to go to the voters in that 4th year, a year ahead of time.
Okay.
And you're allowed to do that.
Okay. Another question I had, and I probably should have researched this more. So does this levy get applied to personal property and real estate, or just?
No, it would be all property taxable in the district.
So how does the personal property refund that the taxpayers are supposed to get back, how's that going to affect the levy? Or do
Now,
you
this
know
is a
yet?
simple answer, okay? The way it's supposed to work is that the taxes get paid, and then the state will make them whole through the refund process on their income or other taxes.
So it shouldn't affect what's
Shouldn't
collected
affect
at the
what's
county
being
level.
collected at the county level. That's in theory. I think there's gonna be some confusion. There already is probably. A lot of people just in habit of paying the whole year in August, and I fear they may wish, once they realize and do their taxes in 25 for 24 tax year, that maybe they wish they would have paid that second half in January of 24 rather than in August of 23.
Those were my only 2 questions I had.
Who all qualifies for the homestead tax exemption? And you touched on this, and so I'd just be curious as to how that would apply. Sounds like there's a little bit more out-of-breath math to it.
Well, you have to, I would like to give the superintendent a more definitive answer, but I'll give you a general answer, and then we can give you details and specifics. But basically, like my mom is in her late 80s, and she has property, and you have to submit paperwork to the assessor to claim it. So it's not just automatic. They don't know who's old enough to be eligible.
See, what's the threshold?
I think it's 65.
65?
And
You can't own 2 farms and apply, it has to be where you live.
Primary
Can I-
yeah, your primary residence.
It's in your paperwork.
Can I point out something? So when you got here, there was a packet of paperwork. If you look on like the 4th page, you'll see some tax tickets where I highlighted. in the net value, your exemption is already in there. So on the first page, it says class 2 is highlighted and the net value class is highlighted. The exemption is actually there. So this first one shows one with a homestead exemption of the 20,000, and that's taken off before your net value. So if we use what the county has on their tax tickets, that's already there before you get to the net value.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the easiest to explain to like regular community members, is what's on the tax ticket at the net value.
And when we go out to talk to people about that, we need to have that blown up so people can see, here's an example.
Yeah, because this is what they actually have on record, and that's what they need to look at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are rules for what you can and can't do as a school board during an election process. And just to get a little bit into that without getting in the weeds, factual information, but you can't politic for it with school board funds. You couldn't have on the corner of the school board property a giant sign paid for by the school board, support your levy. Now, community businesses, chamber of commerce, others who care about the schools will often form committees and do that kind of fundraising and advertising, but you have to be circumspect and be a little careful about that. There are other examples of some of the do's and don'ts, but the main thing is you can't spend school board funds on politicking and promoting it in a general sense. You're allowed to inform though, absolutely, and, you know, you arguably have a duty to try to inform on the facts. But it's up to the voters to decide if it's a good or a bad thing.
It's not, it's probably a naive question, but if, we're not going for this, but let's say we were going for 100% levy, would that automatically mean basically what you're paying now doubles?
No, I don't think you can say that.
No. So the 35% that we possibly are shooting for, you can't count on just raising it 35%,
Well,
what you're currently paying.
the reason you can't, for one thing, is it wouldn't be true for homestead exempt property, because they're gonna have that adjustment in that
Yeah.
value, and so,
I think what we'll
Other
do-
than special circumstances like that, though, would it
well,
be safe to think?
the maximum 100% excess levy, I think, is 22.95 cents for class 1. You double that for class 2, and then it's 4 times that for 3 and 4. So, 45.90 for class 2, and then it just goes up 91.80, I think, for class 3 and 4. So, the current levy is not quite that high. The state sets it, you don't get to set that, but it's just slightly under that, so that's another reason it's not exactly just X percentage more. And then there may be, if you live in a city, the city may have a levy. Municipality would have perhaps a levy. You might have fire, ambulance levies are possible. Library might have a levy. So it varies. So you would need to know kind of district by district. So if you make examples to try to inform the public, you should say, rural home, principal home, appraised value of X, 60% of that is this. No homestead exemption. This is the amount of new taxes from this excess levy. And then maybe I would suggest doing one for the homestead exemption scenario, same value property. 100,000, 60% of that, 60,000 reduction for the homestead exemption, and then run the math. And say, this is what it looks like approximately.
Thank you, sir.
Mrs. Farley, do you have any questions, comments?
I don't, thank you.
Okay. All right. thank you for joining us and providing
Happy
some
to do it,
information.
and, you know, there are no bad questions except for ones you don't ask, so if you think of one later, but you can probably, you might just get them to the superintendent, and Cassandra, and they can get them to us, and we'll be happy to answer.
Before you leave, because I know you want to get out here and you got to drive home, we want you to see our golf team. You might want to sit back and see.
I'd love to, I would love to.
Yep, and that's what I was gonna do, was finish, was ask the golf team if they would like to come up and be recognized.
I think Coach
We have
Lilly
some
probably
coaches
wants,
with
you
us,
want to
right?
say some things too, right?
Yeah, just briefly.
Then we're going to turn it over to you. You run the show. Go ahead.
Okay, you guys come on up here.
Mr. Metter has the camera up here. If you guys want to come on up.
Come on up here, guys.
Listen, guys, if I don't break the camera, you won't either, come on.
I want to start off by thanking the board for recognizing us tonight and for your continued support throughout the season. It wouldn't be possible without you guys and the support we get from you. I want to introduce our guys to you. We have Sean Cooper, who's a senior, Xavier Honaker, who's a sophomore, Brian Cooper, who's a senior, Christian Dillon, who's also a sophomore, and then Marshall Legg, who is a senior as well. I want to brag on these guys just a little bit because as a coach, they demonstrated tremendous work ethic this year. They did everything we asked of them and more. We put them through as much as we could. They also showed a lot of character out there, and they represented Summers County in an upstanding way, which is important as young student athletes going out. 3 of our guys are seniors. They'll be out in college in the workforce this time next year. So we're really pleased with the way they've responded to challenges and overcome adversity throughout the whole year. Our 3 seniors are the first 3 in program history to win 3 regionals and play in 3 consecutive state tournaments in a row. And so we're very proud of that. To give you an idea of how much they have improved over those 3 years, during our 2-day total at the state tournament at Wheeling, and it's been at the same golf course each of those 3 years, been at Oglebay all of those years. In 2021, they shot 579 for a 2-day team total. In 2022, 544, and we improved to 508 this year. So
That's huge.
it's a big improvement, and that's evidence of the hard work and the hours and the commitment they put into this program. This year's runner-up finish was the best in program history. Twice before, there have been 4th place finishes. Once in 1993, I was a freshman on that team, so that's been a little while. And then last year, this team additionally we finished 4th. And so they've improved, went 5th in 2021, 4th and 2nd. We were 4 shots from winning the state championship this year, and we didn't limp into it. With 9 holes to go in a 36-hole match, we were down 16 shots with 9 to go, and we finished 4 down. So we made up 12 shots in the final 9 holes. I think we had 3 more holes, we might have pulled it off.
That's impressive.
I bet-
Very
I
impressive.
bet Wheeling was sweating.
They were not playing their best. You could see, they could feel the pressure coming down the last closing holes. Xavier Honaker had the best finish by any golfer in program history as an individual, because your golf tournaments are a team event, but we also have an individual event as well. He finished tied for 5th, which is the best any Summers County golfer's ever done as an individual.
Nice.
That best, Nick Dent's 8th place finish from 2006. And so he's only a sophomore, so we're excited to see what he can do with 2 more years and a chance to win that state championship as an individual in the next 2 years. So
Can you help recruit? Oh, come on.
anyway, we thank you all, and we appreciate this opportunity to present these guys, and we feel like as a team, they represented the county very well.
That's super important. We appreciate you guys for representing us well.
And we appreciate you, Austin, as a coach, and
Thank you.
for all the other coaches and staff that have worked with them.
Coach
These are-
Ewing, look, he has an illness, wasn't able to be here tonight, so I hate that he wasn't here too, because he's been with these guys since, middle school golf in 6th grade. How many years? 7? 7 years he's spent with these guys, so
Nice.
he spent a lot of hours and a lot of days, to take them from where they were to where they are, so.
And you do have a great group
It
of
is,
guys here.
and that's a good
2
point.
of these I've known for about 13 years, so.
It's nothing but years.
Coach, if you don't mind, the president and I'd like to get a picture with you guys real
Yeah,
quick.
absolutely. Where, you want us back here?
Yeah, let's do it in front.
Come on back here. You're fine.
Congratulations. That's
Yeah. Plainest fellas. You should be able to find some other Summers County kids that all
Did you work with Dave?
shortstop, you can. Well, you can pull that chair out. Here, we'll just do this. Can we get them all? There we go. We can put it down on the web page. Good job, guys. Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys.
Yeah, congrats.
Appreciate you, sir. Yeah, I'm glad you got to see that. You're more welcome to stay, but I figured you'd want to get out of here. Okay, that's fine. I'll tell you what, that's pretty fun. And, you know, when you think about fourth place last year to second, that's 2 places. I mean, that doesn't seem like a lot, but golf, you can have a good day or a bad day on one hole. So that's pretty impressive.
All right, we are at item number 5, public comments.
There are none tonight.
Okay. Item 6, approval of minutes. We have before us the October 10th regular meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as read.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the October 10th minutes as read. Any discussion? I am going to abstain from this because I was not at that meeting, so. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Aye. Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote with myself abstaining that the minutes from October 10th, 2023 have been approved. Approval of bills, we're item 7. We have before us RT Rogers and Safe and Sound.
I make a motion to approve, RT Rogers, Safe and Sound.
Have a motion by Mr. McBride, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the payment of RT Rogers and Safe and Sound. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Ms. Farley, was that you?
Yes, that's
Okay,
an aye.
all right. I thought you did, but I just want to confirm. Let the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote with Mr. Brogan recusing himself that the payment for RT Rogers and Safe and Sound has been approved. We now have before us the remainder of the bills.
Make a motion that we pay the remainder of the bills.
Second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we pay the remainder of the bills. Any discussion? I think I talked to Ms. McClung today about some of the ones that we had questions on. She was able to clarify all those for us. So unless you all have any other questions.
Just curious why the banners and the scoreboard and all that can't be included in the art funding?
Because they can't, it's not part of the art funding.
Yeah, it's just not directly related to COVID, so we can't do it, and it wasn't in the original construction contract. Anytime you have a construction project like that, there's gonna be a handful of things that just was not included in the original one. I mean, I'm sure when we get done with the high school, there'll be a handful of little things like that that teachers want to. But after the fact, we can't really use art funding for that because it's not a COVID-related expense.
All right.
Any other discussion?
I had expressed some interest, and I think Greg shared, but as our funding dwindles from COVID funding, whatever you want to refer to it, things start tightening up, I'll be bugging y'all a little bit more, but
Makes sense.
I'll apologize ahead of time.
No need to apologize.
No, it's a fiduciary responsibility.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Opposed, abstaining. Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the remainder of the bills have been approved for payment. Item 8, new business, purchases over $25,000.
Do you know how that?
All right.
That was for Mr. Brogan there.
8B, under new business, discussion or possible action to approve temporary employment of Chief School Business Officer Mentor, Mr. David McClure from Greenbrier County, $75 per hour, not to exceed 100 hours total.
The reason we're asking for this is because since we are moving out of all the COVID funding and back to whatever normal is, plus we have a levy, Mr. McClure is very, very knowledgeable, and he's given us a good price, and he's close by, so he's probably logged extra hours that he's not even charging us and helping us out with, plus he can help the whole business office, it's just not one person. But having said that, that's the rationale for asking him to work with us some more.
Do you remember what the original ask was?
The
That-
same,
That again?
it was this.
And the
Well-
total cost, you want that?
No,
Oh.
what I was about to get at, I'm just curious, are we required to have that 100-hour?
Not to exceed.
No, that was just.
Because we're having to do this because we had 100-hour,
We did,
so,
we just weren't sure.
I mean, you can make it whatever you
I
want,
will-
but,
well, I mean, I don't think you're just gonna have him down here just hanging out.
right.
No,
So,
do you want something like, but not limited to, more than?
well, I was gonna make
Oh,
if it's
motion.
okay, I'll make a motion, and if everybody's cool with it.
I got you.
Are we ready for that motion?
It's like on.
I'll make a motion
On the
to
edge.
approve, and, I'd like to ask that the 100 hours be removed.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey. Any discussion? One question I might ask. Do we want to, since we're gonna remove the 100 hours, do we wanna do it for the current fiscal or current school year? Or is this something you see needing to go over into the next school year?
We couldn't go past
Okay, so
June
it would
30th.
stop at June
It has
30th
to
no
stop
matter
June,
what.
yeah.
Well,
Okay.
since we're in the
So we have
discussion phase,
Well,
I'm pretty sure that we spent $25,000 on Lauren her first year,
You did.
so
This is
we're
way
still
under it.
way under, and if we have to, this way we won't have to do it again, that's what.
I get you.
so if we make it for just this school year though, we might have to do it again, because part of this 100 hours that I was asking for was for any questions with next year's financials, which is what we did the first time it crossed school years. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with asking for it again next year, but just know that that might be on there, because while I wouldn't need as many hours anywhere close next year, I might still have some questions. Just throwing that out there. As clarification.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's just stick with your original motion.
It's fabulous is what he's saying.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we hire David McClure for $75 an hour, and we strike the not to exceed 100 hours. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay. We've had our discussion period, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that we have approved David McClure from Greenbrier County for $75 an hour. New business, item C, discussion or possible action to approve MOU with Marshall University. This is for the CTR, Clinical Teacher of Record Partnership Agreement.
I can make this real easy to understand. This is similar to our Concord MOU, and this may change a little bit depending on how many students that we can get from Marshall at this point in time. We have one that will be coming our way, and this is a person who is a math applicant. So that is very promising for us. So it's just another way for us to recruit and get people to come to our county. So very similar to Concord's MOU with trying to get a CTR into our school system, using Marshall and Concord.
So this is the first time using Marshall?
No,
No.
no. It's just we know there's a applicant who wants to come this way, from what I understand. Is that correct?
I think we've had a previous agreement,
We did.
but we've not used them. I don't think it was ever actually used because of proximity. People from Marshall usually don't come down this far, they stay in the Huntington area, but this one
But this one
is in the area.
is in the area for now, so that's a good thing to have.
According to their records, we didn't have an agreement, so we just figured we'll just get an agreement in place that would give us the opportunity.
And then, so including Concord, and this may not be fair right now, but how many CTRs have we seen come through approximately, and what's been the retention?
This year, or
Just since we've been utilizing it?
since this is year 3 for me, we got, I think about 10 my first year. The second year, maybe 2. I'm just
Yeah.
shooting from the hip here.
Yeah, yeah.
This year we have 1, looking at 2, potentially in the next couple weeks. Retention of the big group, we only retained 1 or 2, and that was really just because they lived, 1 came from Bolt. Bolt's over toward Oceana. It was just proximity for them. I think they had a good experience here, it was just proximity. And the fact that other counties around us have a ton of vacancies. But this is a way for us for at least this semester to get a qualified, undergraduate applicant, in a traditional, I would say almost a traditional applicant into a classroom.
And these are only filling the roles that long-term subs would be in, so it would be putting a qualified applicant into those roles instead of a sub. It's not just anything.
Yeah, and we have to repost it, like when they fulfill, their school term, we have to repost that position. I will say we've had better retention for at least a year if they come in the fall, because, most people don't leave mid-year, especially at the elementary level, because they just wanna finish that job. So, that answers your question?
Thank you. And again, probably not a fair question, so I apologize. As far as classroom management and the academic achievement goes, so we're putting these CTRs in place of someone who might be a long-term sub, who may be a retired teacher or not.
The odds are less and less, I would say. But in theory, yes.
Yeah, so what data have we seen in these CTR classrooms in regards to classroom management and academic achievement?
I'll just go on what I've seen this year. We have 1 in place this year, that we hired right at the beginning of the year. Now in that classroom, right this minute, you have to have a retired teacher who's certified to serve as the cooperating teacher, so we have that right now. I've been in that classroom 2 or 3 times, and been there for a little bit. I think it's tremendous, because what those CTRs have had is everything but student teaching. So they've had all the pedagogy courses, all the content. They're majoring in that field. So they are, for example, elementary ed majors. They went through everything in elementary ed but a student teaching semester, and they've already gone through the residency period, which we didn't have when we were in school. So I would say that they are, if you can't get a traditionally certified teacher right out of college, which are hard to come by just based on numbers, this is the next best thing. Sometimes we keep them, sometimes we don't. But it's the next best thing for the kids. If we have a retired teacher in place, I'm trying to think of a position. None of our CTRs would be bumping a retired teacher that would want the job, right? I don't think so. I'm shooting from the hip again, so, if I think of something different, I can let you know. Did I answer that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have before us the MOU with Marshall University for the CTR partnership agreement. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion to approve this agreement with Marshall University.
I'll
Motion by Mr. McBride, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the MOU with Marshall University. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the MOU with Marshall University has been approved. Item 9, personnel. We have before us an employment professional. The names that are listed. See, we have a driver's ed teacher.
Yeah,
So
finally.
we're gonna get some use out of that driver's ed vehicle now.
It is gonna be used.
We have employment service. We have some changes to the effective date of employments that were previously hired. Those were listed as to be determined, and we now have the effective dates. We have before us professional, extracurricular, extra duty. We have substitute teachers and homebound teachers. These have all been posted with the names according to our policy. So we will, unless you all want to, we will handle these all at once.
Motion or is that fine?
He said it's fine.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion.
Motion by Mr. McBride, I will second that motion, that we approve the superintendent's recommendation for personnel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the superintendent's recommendation for personnel has been approved. Item 10, superintendent's report.
Okay, I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm giving you 7 things to talk about tonight. And it will not be long, but I will try to be concise and to the point so you can ask questions. The first one is our middle school edition. We did not have a 2 o'clock meeting today because it would have been silly because we have it tomorrow at 2. It's been pushed back to tomorrow due to the fact Pinkerton and McKinley needed more time to come up with a recovery plan. There is more to things than meets the eye, and Pinkerton, that was here on Monday. He is a very experienced guy with architect and engineering background. He looked at some things and right away he saw some problems. He saw some things that were all right. One thing he saw was all right was we can pour the 6th grade classroom wing. That pour will be tomorrow morning, which is good because we have a 2-hour delay already scheduled, so that won't get in any way of the buses or parents or anybody. That pour will start at 6:30. That's the good news. The bad news is we still don't know what the recovery plan looks like, so I will know more after tomorrow's meeting at 2 o'clock. But I would rather just take our time and get it right because there's already been too much of a mess up, guys. And at this point in time, I have forwarded you guys an email tonight, but I have a hard copy I'm gonna hand to you so you can look it over. I'm letting Joe and Kevin know from Radford that these are some expectations that we gotta do as we move forward because we can't afford to mess around. I'm more concerned about starting with the middle school in that building next fall because the way things are going. So having said that, the good news, bad news, we got a problem. The good news though is we got Pinkerton on board and we're gonna work with them because they're the ones who are gonna make sure they hold Radford's feet to the fire, if you will, for lack of a better term. So as of today, that's all the information I have from the last time I've given you guys an update. But it was silly to have a meeting today since we weren't gonna know till tomorrow at 2. So it's just been pushed back a day. But then after that, it'll be a weekly meeting every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on people's schedules. So every other week will be the scheduled 2 o'clock Tuesday meeting. The other weeks will be Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on people's schedules. So we're gonna be meeting weekly. So it is very, very frustrating to say the least, but at this point in time, all we can do is keep the SBA informed, you, the board members, informed, and also the board members of the SBA are very much aware of our situation. So not to call anybody out right now, but right now I will be talking to Kevin and Joe tomorrow morning because I've requested them in my email that I want to see them in my office before I hand them over a check to have some conversations because this just isn't working, guys. This marriage is not working the way it should be, and I'm a little frustrated for you. And if you feel half as mad as I do, well, we can just multiply that by 6 people right now because there's 5 board members and a superintendent. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm not happy with the performance that's going on. I am happy with McKinley and Pinkerton trying to figure out how to dig us out of this hole while making that building structurally sound. Because I don't wanna go any higher until we know we got it right. So the good news is, pour tomorrow, 6th grade wing. Bad news is, we're behind schedule, big time, and I don't know what that means yet. That's all I know at this point in time. You guys have any questions about that? Cause I don't know where else to go with you.
One of the communications you shared with us was that there was gonna be demolition of the other two footers for the gymnasium. Did that take place, or is that?
What has taken place is the west wall, the one closest to the locker rooms, the short wall, has been removed. That footer can stay. There, that's okay. The wall that is closest to the auditorium, the other long wall, from what I've been told preliminary, they're probably gonna rip that whole wall out and leave the footer. But the problem is there might be more footer added to where the pilasters are. So where the arches land, all that weight driving down, those pilasters might need an extra footing because they bump out. So that wouldn't be any different than if it was brand new, because you have to bump that out anyway for the pilasters on the inside. Because that's the problem where the arches land, they're not gonna land squarely. That's been the whole problem. So that wall and this wall are the two that are coming out. So in essence, all 4 walls will have been ripped out at least twice, and one 3 times. And I'm not making that up, and that's why I'm very hot right now about this. It's ridiculous. Especially in the 21st century, my wife has even said, don't we have lasers nowadays? Can't we use new technology? That's just me venting to my wife, but anyway, that's how this has been going on. So to answer your question, footers are good, walls are not good. So all 4 walls have been ripped out at least twice.
That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
I've asked this question before, but when we were having to turn the gym ever so slightly to make it fit, we lost locker room space because we had to do that.
We lost, well, not locker room, we lost, if we lost a little bit of locker room, it wasn't near as much as the, you know where the STEM lab is? And their storage space,
Yeah.
and the locker rooms, we lost the most in the storage, which,
Okay.
we did lose a little bit of the locker room, but not much. It was the storage area of the STEM lab, yeah, when they twisted it or pivoted, this is layman term here.
I get it. I just wondered if that was even necessary, if it would have been square to start with.
That's a good question, and I'll have information for you later with a correction of that. And what I'll do to help you guys out is, I'll either have Roger, our clerk of works, or McKinley come and speak to you all, because I'm afraid if we put Radford in front of us, it'll look like a shooting gallery. Because I would rather us understand the recovery and focus on the positives and get going, because we already know what the negatives are. They screwed up, and that's how we're gonna have to move forward.
And the whole project being behind squarely on being.
That's gonna be an issue with the recovery plan.
So what was the clarification on who's paying for Pickering?
Well, at this point in time, the school building authority has contingency money for us. So either the contingency money will be spent by the school building, or the county will pay for it, and then we'll charge them. But right now, from my understanding, McKinley is paying for Pickerington, which then will end up being school building authority money. So no county fund at this point in time. But I had to tell the president of Pickerington, you have our word, we will pay you, because right now McKinley has not paid Pickerington back in May. Radford, excuse me, thank you guys. See, I'm getting
Sorry,
too
wanted
worked
to
up.
make that clear that it's Radford that hasn't paid, not.
That is true, excuse me, I'm glad you said that, I meant Radford, but McKinley will make the bill through Pickerington, and then that money will then be picked up by the school building authority, because McKinley and Pickerington are not gonna be left in the dry. So what they'll do is ultimately Radford's on the hook for all this, because the county, I did not wanna pay, but I also know we didn't have any skin in the game, and at some point, we gotta get it right too. And I'd rather pay someone who knows what they're doing to move it forward. And I think Ms. Farley said at the last board meeting, in essence, a babysitter. And I don't wanna, but that's what I
That's what it
recall. So long story short, again, Radford will end up paying, but McKinley's gonna get the money and pay Pickerington and not the county at this point in time. But if we do have to do that, you know how we have an overage list and a credit list? We would just apply that to the credit list at the end of the day. Because we're doing a running total on what's over and what is credited. And so right now, that's been put to a halt because we got a problem here with fixing it right, so that's a good question to ask. Number two, this is very positive, Talkit Gymnasium. It is ready to have a nice ceremony at 10 o'clock this Saturday. We have the CTE making cookies and punch. They are not by the Healthy Foods Network. This is by, we're gonna celebrate and enjoy ourselves, and the kids are excited to make over 200 cookies. Because I have it on good authority that we're gonna have 2.5 million people there, because everybody's coming, which I find it funny, because those are great numbers to hear, but really the number's closer to 200. But it sounds like everybody and their brother's coming, which that's great. We need some positivity. We want those kids that enjoy a gymnasium. So basically, 10 o'clock, we will have programs ready. I sent you all an email on what the program looks like. Just be thinking, if all of you would like to say a few words, that's fine. Or if you just want one person to say the remarks, but basically, we want to thank the people who have got us there and want to celebrate. And then we'll have a TV there with pictures of what it looked like before and after, and then just let people enjoy the day. Our other CTE program, the design class, has made t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, hats. They're taking advantage of the situation to say, would you like to buy something at the ceremony and support our CTE program, and also some of the proceeds will go to a new playground. So that's pretty cool. Our leadership team with our Lighthouse team at Talkit has 4th and 5th graders. I asked that they be there so they can serve the cookies and punch in the new concession. Besides, they'll get the first peek before Monday when we gift it back to the kids for their ceremony at 8:30 in the morning on school on Monday. I'll get more details if any of you'd like to come, or all of you, on Monday to see the kids' face in the new gymnasium. That'll be the day, guys, to see their faces, because every time I go out there, I have numerous kids, hey, Mr. Normal, at recess time, if they're outside, can I go in the gym? It's always, can I go in the gym? And it's like Christmas, but they're gonna get it before Christmas, but to those kids, they're ready to have their gym back, and guys, it looks real sharp, it looks good, so. Number 3, Hinton area, that'll be the next project after we have this celebration of Talkit. We're gonna start getting RFPs out for construction there. Just to let you guys know, we, a couple years ago, when we got this money from the federal government, COVID money, we set aside 1.25 million for Hinton area and for Talkit. Talkit's total is 1,688,724. So 1.7 million, or 1,688,724. We're over budget by $439,000. Now, some people could say that's a lot overage, but when you get into a 1936 building, there was some damage to that floor and a wall that had to be structurally fixed. It wasn't just paint and some caulk. It had some structural issues that weren't too bad, but yet they had to be addressed. So Hinton area, that leaves them around $800,000 to do some renovations there. So Ms. Gum and the staff knows that there was some money, that they're not getting the whole kit and caboodle, but we'll have to restructure that, send it to the State Department saying, this is what we spent, this is where we're gonna be a little under, we gotta refocus because we can't do what we said we were gonna do, but we're gonna pull back some things. So that's the good and bad about having this money and trying to make it flow, but that's just how it is, guys, when you're doing this business, and this money has to be spent. So we need to start working on Hinton area ASAP, because this money needs to be expended by September.
How much did you say we had for Hinton area? 108?
800,000.
Oh, okay.
800,000.
I'm glad I missed.
No, I'm glad you did, sorry.
Those, heat and air units that we bought, that was with that money
What
for
are,
that school recently, right?
what's the heat and air?
P-TAC units.
Oh, yeah, we use that there.
So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
substantial now.
Yeah.
It's already went towards the.
Yeah, that's helped out a lot with the air quality, and it's not as noisy, you know, and they're better efficient now. The other thing with Hinton area, good news, Mr. Metter and I met with Jack Scott, the mayor, last week in the rain. You couldn't ask for 3 guys to meet in a better spot out than in the rain under 2 umbrellas by an area that has been cleaned up. And the city would like to gift us on the curb on the corner of Main and Reservoir. It's basically catty corner. If you're at the Penn area playground and you go to the right at the corner, that's an area where they got rid of a house or some old stuff. They cleaned it up, they put down some cloth, and now they're putting crush and run. They're gifting us that for teacher parking. Yeah, and then the other thing they're gonna do for us is on Cross Street, they're gonna make that a one-way, and down Cross Street, what they'd like to do is, this was 2 years ago talking to Jack Scott, it's just, he keeps apologizing, sorry we haven't got to you sooner, but look, we understand. There's money that's come to everybody, and everybody's got only so much time to get things done, but they're gonna put a sidewalk down there on that, the closest to the wall there, so when you turn left coming from the courthouse, and that'll become a one-way, you also have a sidewalk for the kids, so now it'll wrap around the building back to the parking lot. So that'll be a nice place to keep people off the street, plus it's a one-way, and that'll help the buses and the parents for pickup and drop-off. And then the staff will have a nice parking lot area. They're gonna gift that to us. So they'll take care of that, and I told them that, can we say this at the next board meeting? He said, go ahead. So I was given the go-ahead to let you know. So I wanna thank the city of Hinton and Jack Scott and the team of people to gift that to the kids. But more importantly, the staff's gonna love having an area to park, and that'll help clear things out as we move forward for parents with the flow. Because you know busing, they don't like moving targets with people and cars, so it's tight there anyway. So I think everybody will win from that, so we're thankful. The fourth thing, real quick, last Friday was the end of the first 9 weeks. Can you believe that? You guys just did a state of the speech at the beginning of the school year with me, and boom, 1/4's gone already. So if you're a senior, it's going quick. This is a quick year already. So just wanted to let everybody know that. I already mentioned this earlier, 6:30 a.m., 6th grade port. We already got that ready to go, so that should work with our 2-hour delay start, so that'll be good. Last week, we started our after-school program where kids get tutor, homework help. They get an activity and a snack. We're working on that. We're gonna have some hitches and bugs to work out those kinks, but this is a 5-year grant that we were able to get for a 21st century grant to have after-school programming for our kids. We have 6 buses picking up kids and taking them home after that as well. So that's a great thing for our kids to have homework help, an activity. The elementaries are gonna take advantage of the activity by getting ready for theater. So I thought, that's great, it's the arts. So whether you play music, you wanna help out, a guy like me, let me help out with the props. I'll pull the curtain, I'll be behind the scenes. Those kids can help out with something like that. So other activities are like PE activities where you're actually doing some movement. So there's all kinds of activities and arts and things of that nature. And then the last thing, we met here 2 days ago, Dr. Green, Mr. Kuhn, myself, Tad Withrow, and 2 people from REACH. We're gonna start with the middle school students. We've noticed that since we've been back to school traditionally now, year 2, we're seeing kids getting back to normal, being typical, I wanna push the limits with my cell phone. So we're gonna talk about digital citizenship and phone etiquette with pictures and things that you should receive and send appropriately or what's not appropriate. And we're gonna have females talk to the females, we're gonna have the males talk to the males, and I wanna make it more an intimate setting where it's a class set, not blast a whole auditorium full of kids. It's better to do like a room this size. When you have me with this many, I can handle questions and we can dialogue and people will feel more comfortable. So Dr. Green's gonna work on the schedule through advisory first to see if that'll work out and break it down that way for middle school. Eventually, I asked the team, I would like to move to the 9th through 12th and the 4th and 5th. So we'll start in the middle school and work our way out. Middle school seems to be a little bit more daring, if you will, about some things. And we're seeing a bump up on inappropriate behavior with cell phones, let's put it that way. So I wouldn't say we're proactive, I wouldn't say we're reactive, we're just understanding we're getting back to normal and dealing with some things that you normally deal with kids. So the good news is we have females, we'll talk to the kids appropriately for female questions, and males the same thing, and then we'll go from there. But we'll report back out to you later with, since it's starting in Dr. Green's building, we'll start there at the secondary and report back to you guys about that advisory program. So we'll go from there. 7 things I thought I'd get through as quickly as I could. Any questions?
Yes.
Here's, take one and pass it on.
And Ms. McClellan sent out an email after the fact, from last meeting, but just from an open, for the community, regarding the 6 buses that are supporting the 21st century after-school tutoring.
Yeah.
The question was asked about funding for that, so,
You want me to-
yeah, if you don't.
Okay,
If
yeah.
you'll speak to it, you'll do it better than I would.
So-
Well, you talk about 4 being 21st century and 2 being art.
Yeah, and that we're hired through the county.
Yeah.
So all of the bus drivers were hired through the county, because all of them are paid a little bit differently, because on the service side, we have to pay per hour, so it's not as straightforward as on the professional side. So logistically, it makes more sense for us to pay that and then ask for reimbursement from the ESC for that. In the grant, a specific amount, it was like 15,000 and some dollars were set aside for after-school busing. That will approximately pay for 4 of the 6, and the extra 2 will be out of the ARP funding, which we have a bucket of after-school funding that we have to spend to the ARP one, so that'll help fill that bucket. But they're hired through us basically because it makes more logistical sense on their payroll.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, item 11, point of privilege. Ms. Farley, since you're dialed in, we'll start with you. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
I do, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. A former graduate of Hinton High School, he's been a longtime friend of our family. He works for WVDA News, and I saw a post of his on Facebook recently. He covers the area high school football games on Friday nights. He's like the camera guy and so forth. And he made a post about a game he was at recently that was senior night at that high school. And he said that as the seniors were being honored, there was one senior band member, a boy, that when he came out on the field, he was by himself. He didn't have a parent or a sibling or grandparent or anyone with him as he was being honored. And he commented on how hard that was for him to see. And I thought about that, and I just think, none of us know what the situation is, and I've seen that myself sometimes being at concerts for my kids and things in the past, that there are times when kids don't have someone there. And I would like to put out there for principals or coaches, the band director, anyone, if there was ever a situation that you know in advance is going to come up like that, reach out to me, or I'm sure you could reach out to any of the other board members. We would be happy to stand in and be there to fill that spot. And I have 31 years experience of embarrassing my kids at school functions, so I'd be more than happy to do that, because I just can't imagine a child not having somebody there, especially on something important like senior night. So I just wanted to reach out and say, call me, send me a message. If you know that somebody's not gonna have a parent there for something important, I would be more than happy to be there.
Thank you.
So, two, one, real quick, is, we as board and office staff have been invited to, talk at Elementary's trunk or treat on October 31st. I believe that's, if we're gonna hand things out, it'd be about 1:30 to be there. And just let them know ahead of time. The other one is, I just wanted to recognize, and it was appropriate with our golf team here, our Summers County student athletes, just phenomenal, what our kids are doing, with our golf team getting second place in states. On our cross-country team, we've got 2 competitors, Dakota Petrie and Avery Lilly, who have made it to the state competition. The accolades and records that are being broken by Brandon Isaac and Ryan Oliveros, Tyson Atkins on our football team. And then our youth football, making its playoffs for flag, varsity, and Pee Wee. And then our cheer flag team, getting first place in there. So just congratulations to all those student athletes and to see just, how well-rounded the people are in those students as well.
It's a good way to start the school year.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Brogan?
I figured actually all of us would probably hit sports in one way or another, and I had intended to do the same, so just a quick congratulations to add to what Megan said. We do have a tremendous, to be all community and county and student population fairly low compared to a lot. We still have, good competitive athletes in our area, and I think it's pretty cool, and they represent us well. Other thing I want to mention was, a lot of times news comes to us, and I just want to share that I have had several people to actually come to me and say that they really like the direction that Jumping Branch is going under their new leadership. So you left in good hands, and it seems like the ship's still sailing up there, and people are happy, and congratulations to Mr. Pack.
It started with buying the right t-shirts and polo shirts. He knew maroon real quick. I think Dr. Green helped him out with that right away.
Similar feedback for the high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar
Yeah.
feedback for the high school.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, same here, I've gotten a lot of feedback from my schools, and it's been good.
I think, Jake, is that what you're pointing?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
All right, so it's funny how we often think alike. We don't communicate this ahead of time, but our thoughts often are alike and revolve around our students and as Mr. Brogan stated, I have had people approach me in public about Jumping Branch. I've had people approach me about Talkett and Hinton area, as well as the high school, and how they're seeing positive changes in these schools from administration, and that's encouraging to us as board members to know that what's in place there seems to be working. So please keep up all the good work. I have also spoken with Mr. Sims, and Mr. Sims has done a phenomenal job with our band. And Dr. Green, you may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but last week when I spoke to Mr. Sims, and I don't think they've been yet, but they're preparing to go to some band competitions here in the very near future.
We've been to one,
Been to one. I think he told me there were
and they'll go to another one this Saturday.
several they were gonna be participating in. He told me the number, but I don't remember.
They are, and Randall Reed Smith at the state level, he is all about Summers County, so we have a friend in Randall Reed Smith.
But Mr. Sims has done a phenomenal job with our band. I can remember, it's not been too many years ago when you would go to a football game or what have you, and there would just be a handful of students on the field. And Mr. Smith has, he has not only increased the quantity of band members, but the quality has just exponentially increased. And I've attended for the past 2 years, they generally do a band concert of some sort, whether it's around the holidays but I've been for the past 2 years, and it was as good of a performance as any band performance I've seen. The kids were not nervous. They played their hearts out and they enjoyed it. They had fun. And that's just really great to see. Hats off to our golf team, hats off to our football team. All of our sporting programs, each thing we offer here is to try to get another student involved. And not everyone's going to be a football player, not everybody's going to be a basketball player. So that band is just another opportunity for kids to be involved. And that's what we're all here for, is for the kids and to make sure they have opportunities here that they may not have otherwise. And while we are a small county, and they may not be able to get the opportunities that some of the larger counties can offer their I think we do a good job with what we do offer. and I think that the staff that we have working with our students, they do a good job. So, I know we're recognizing a lot of seniors here now. Past few events, sporting events we've had, I know volleyball recognized theirs last night. They're gonna have a senior night at one of the upcoming football games. And as other sports go through, they'll be recognizing as well. So we just appreciate everyone who works with our students in those extracurricular activities. One thing that did come out regarding sports, and it was one of those unintended consequences that we talked about earlier with the levy. There has been some talk, and this came up in our SESC, of recruiting that's taken place because of unintended consequences of the legislature's action to allow students to transfer schools. And, that was concerning, but I think that from what we heard at the SESC, Mr. Price is addressing that. There have been over 400 students in this year alone that switched schools for sporting events. And Mr. Price has a plan to address that. And it was indicated at the SESC meeting that they're not going to tolerate recruiting. So as a board member and as someone who, we have our kids, we want them to be on a level playing field as much as possible. So it was good to hear that come out from Mr. Price. So that's all I have. Mr. McBride, you are on. Oh, wait, no, sorry, item 12, discussion of next agenda. The next meeting, November 14th at 5 p.m. Do we have any agenda items that we need to add?
For either this agenda or sometime in the future, I think it would be nice to have some members from the student government to present, just to hear their input.
I would, if we can, I would like to do that maybe the first in December. We've just kind of got our clubs off the ground, and that's the vehicle for which we're gonna build the student government.
Thank you.
Thank you. As always, if you have any items, you can reach out to myself or Mr. Wardle to add to the next agenda.
This is not really an agenda item, but is Thanksgiving gonna play any role messing up board meeting time?
I think we're the week before,
I don't have my phone on me.
We have one.
It will be 2 days prior to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it will.
No.
It's the week after Thanksgiving.
We missed Thanksgiving this year.
It's the Tuesday after
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
I think it landed better this year.
We have a 5th Tuesday in October.
Yeah.
That's good.
So no, yes.
All right, Mr. McBride, now you're on, item 13.
I make a motion to adjourn, the time is 6:30.
Thank you for that.